And we're live. Kvetching Draftniks is back. Better than ever. Post the YouTube link. We have a wonderful staff on tonight. We got Scott Carasik. We got Ben Natan. We got Zach Gardner. And we have the incomparable Goyim guest tonight, Arif Hasan of Vikings Territory, Daily Norseman, and articles that are really long. Really long.
What I do.
Yeah, thanks for being on the show. I'm just going to tweet out the link right now. So how have your breaks been since the draft ended? Mine's been amazing.
I took like a week off, and then I got really bored, so I started watching like 2015 guys again. So.
I took a week off, and then summer classes started, and Georgia Tech has been doing the usual, making me sad ever since.
I sold a bunch of cars. That's basically all I did.
Sounds good. I really think things did change too much because I had to have hot takes after the draft. So I wrote those up.
Yeah, well, one team that definitely had quite the draft was the Vikings. I mean, their draft was pretty much. There are a lot of people now who probably are just going to make the Vikings their favorite team or their second favorite team just because they took Teddy at 32. And
No, it was a stellar draft. There's been like a lot of people have been saying on Twitter and not just Twitter, like just like around, they've been saying stuff like, man, I really like how the Vikings, like, handled that first round of the draft, how they grabbed Teddy at the bottom of the first round. A lot of people have been talking the Vikings the favorite team now because of all the Teddy slander. It was just an absolutely phenomenal draft, absolutely exciting. I didn't like some stuff that happened sort of middle and later, but, whatever. It was a phenomenal draft.
The thing I really liked about what the Vikings did is I don't think, as you said, they weren't slaves to, like, if they didn't get exactly what they wanted, that they still were there to play, and they realized that there was other value on the board. Because they wanted Manziel, and they were trying to trade back in the first round for him. It's been pretty widely reported. It's something that some of us, like, we talked about how they did like Manziel. It's been pretty well known. And when they couldn't get him, they still stayed the course, and they saw that Teddy, value-wise, was pretty similar. And Norv Turner apparently banged the table for him as well. When you have a guy like Norv Turner banging the table for you, bodes pretty well. So I definitely think that they're going to look back in this draft and be very happy, because really they just need an improvement of the Christian Pond.
Anytime you get the second best player in the draft class with the 32nd overall pick, you're going to have a great draft.
Yeah, absolutely. There's no question about that.
So this is going to be... Sorry, go.
I was just quickly going to say, and if Anton Exum can get healthy, he might be one of the steals of the draft.
Oh, definitely one of my favorite picks, actually. One of my favorite underrated Vikings picks out of the draft.
Yeah.
What a great... It makes up, I think, for the Schmarski pick.
Healthy, I think that he was probably a top 50 player as a defensive back in the class, playing corner or safety. So if they're able to get it, if he can recover fully from his knee injuries, then I think that's going to be really good pick to go in that young secondary.
If he recovers, and he's himself, he's camp transfer.
Yeah.
I hope they put him at safety.
Yeah, me too. I hope that
not cornerback.
That's what it sounds like. They're going to put him at safety.
All right, that's good. I'm excited to see what Zimmer does. So in terms of the show tonight, it's going to be pretty informal. We can talk about whatever we want. I know that Ben wanted to do a quick rundown. Like, I guess we can go... I don't really know if we want to go, like, team by team, but maybe we could do, like, go around in a circle, and we could each, like, talk about, like, a couple of teams that we really liked, or, like, each bring up a team that, like, we want to draw particular attention to in the draft. And if anyone on Twitter wants us to talk about a certain team, just tweet at us, one of us, and I'm sure we'll be able to chime in on them. So, I guess to start, just randomly picking Scott, who's one team's draft that really sort of stuck out to you as them trying to do something interesting?
You mean outside of the Vikings?
Yeah, because we just talked about that.
I kind of like the Browns draft, honestly.
I did too.
I said for a while that the best spot for any rookie quarterback was gonna be Cleveland, as weird as that sounded. I like their offensive coordinator. I like their offensive line. You're going to have a quarterback who's not going to get demolished every play. That alone's worth $1 million right there. I mean, I really like their draft. They got Bitonio, they got Manziel, they got Gilbert. That top three, I mean, you really can't beat it outside of Minnesota.
And that's before we even talk about Terrence West or Pierre Desir, who were both, I mean, like, Desir was an absolute steal.
Oh, yeah. I mean, their cornerback situation's set for years.
Desir might be better than the guy they picked in the top 10.
That's true.
Yeah.
They didn't have a bad pick in that draft, I don't think. I mean, you could argue that maybe Bitonio was like a bit of an odd duck, but I think it was fine for what they did. I think actually my favorite thing that they did was grab Isaiah Crowell right after the draft as an undrafted. I mean, that backfield is stacked. They've got Ben Tate, they've got Terrence West, they've got Isaiah Crowell, they've got Johnny Manziel. I mean, it's going to be a great team for running.
And I love the Miles Austin signing, too. That was something that really is going to go a long way to solidify that receiver corps. But really, I think every guy they picked in this draft is probably a starter this year, maybe other than this year, because they have.
True, actually, yeah.
But
Well, it
Kirksey's
depends on
going to
if you
start.
count the nickel a starter, too. Because, I mean, nickel,
Yeah, exactly. So,
he's the third corner, but I think you see Gilbert slide over to the nickel a lot because that's what he did in college. So I think you could see Desir as the outside corner, Gilbert on the inside, a lot more than people think.
yeah, I would love it if they just kept Gilbert to safety, but that's not going to happen. But, yeah, I think Bitonio starts. I think Manziel starts. Kirksey is a Rookie of the Year sleeper candidate to me. I loved his tape. And actually, with him and Dansby in the middle of that defense, you cannot pass in the short middle of the Browns anymore, especially with those linebackers in coverage, because Kirksey runs like a safety. And Dansby's probably the best coverage linebacker in football. So they're in really, really good shape there. And Terrence West, I mean, I don't know if Crowell's going to beat him out for a job, but at the end of the day, you got a really nice 1-2 punch there at a position where they had no depth there before. I love their draft, except I wouldn't have taken Gilbert at.
I'd say the other draft that I really like is the Dolphins.
I certainly am a fan. I mean, the value of most of their picks were absolutely tremendous. Like, to me, my favorite pick from that entire draft had to have been Jordan Tripp. He's a guy who I definitely thought was going to go on day 2. I mean, he's a guy who has the ability to play inside or out. He has phenomenal range and instincts. I mean, he has great shedding technique, always gets guys inside the shoulder. He's a tough guy, isn't afraid to take the shortest route to the ball. I love a lot of what they did.
I think you get 4 starters in the first 5 picks, though. You got Arthur Lynch, who's probably going to start at tight end, and they're going to move Clay back to the H-back role.
Mm-hmm.
You got Billy Turner, who's probably going to play left guard, which perfect role for him. Slide him over when Albert leaves. You got Jawan James, who's going to slide right next into his buddy Dallas Thomas on the right side. And then, I mean, you fixed the offensive line in one offseason, pretty much.
It went from a weakness of the team to a strength of the team.
Yeah, and then you got Arthur Lynch.
I would also want to talk about Jarvis Landry real quick. He was definitely maybe my favorite player for value, maybe in the entire draft, at least if you're talking about sort of those early rounds. I love Jarvis Landry so much, and I think that getting him at 63 is criminal. You've got a receiver core of Mike Wallace and Brian Hartline and Jarvis Landry, and honestly, Jarvis Landry might be the best receiver day one if they still can't get value out of Mike Wallace.
The thing about the Dolphins draft is it was so Ryan Tannehill centric. I mean, I didn't love the Jawan James pick. I thought the value was a little weird on that, but he definitely has upside. But getting a guy like Jarvis Landry and Matt Hazel and Arthur Lynch, those are all guys who can help Tannehill right now. You know, they're not guys that you're going to really need to depend on developing. They're sure-handed, dependable receivers who can come in day one and be reliable targets for him, which he really didn't have. And then getting a guy like Billy Turner, who is a stud at guard or right tackle, he's going to come in and help boost that offensive line. So I like the fact that they're really dedicated this draft to Tannehill, and I think that you're going to see much more improvement on paper maybe than what you saw last year from him because of the talent around him.
That was going to be my question: is why would it be a bad thing if they centered it around Tannehill? That seems like the smart way to go.
No, absolutely, and that's what I love so much about it. Is like some of the values. Actually, I think they got a steal in Jarvis Landry and getting Arthur Lynch that late. I loved Arthur Lynch when I was evaluating him, but I thought that the idea of their draft was just phenomenal. I thought they went in with a good plan and they executed it very well.
I mean, I wouldn't have taken Juwan James at 18, but they were always a weird team to mock at 18. I mean, I remember my last mock draft that I did with like a group of people. I gave them Ryan Shazier because I couldn't see them taking Lewin, and I wasn't exactly sure where I could see them going. And Shazier actually going a lot higher than a lot of people expected. But yeah, I liked their draft. I loved Landry. I think that's a really good pick for them. Wallace will open up the entire middle of the field for him, so that's great.
They were trying to trade down.
Yeah, but I still wouldn't have taken James. I would have. I honestly would have. I was in their position. Probably, I guess if you can't trade down, I might have taken a guy like Dennard.
I think I ended up mocking them to trade up for Zach Martin.
Or that. Although, to me, I don't think Martin is going to be a tackle, but whatever.
I agree with you on Martin. And here's the thing: if Juwan James gets it and starts, wasn't really a reach.
If he's bad, yes.
Yeah, I mean, look, Lane Johnson went 3 overall last year. He was bad. I mean, Luke Jokel didn't look good in his limited time. Eric Fisher didn't look good in his.
They were all bad.
Yes, they were. And then they were all like so.
Jokel was the best of the bunch, and he still wasn't that good.
Yeah, exactly.
But he was injured.
I just remember that Justin Pugh was the best tackle to come out of the first round last year.
Oh,
and he was early in the season, but he got a lot better.
He did.
But, I'm just saying how they played. Lane Johnson's going to this year.
I'm not quite as high on a couple of the day 3 picks as some of you guys seem to be. I wasn't super high on Arthur Lynch. I wasn't that high on Matt Hazel. I'm not sure that he's going to be able to play the way he did at Coastal Carolina in the NFL because he would try to body guys, and at 6'1", maybe in D2 you can do that. But I don't know if he can do that in the NFL. I actually, when I watched him, I thought that he should switch positions and become a defensive back because I think he could be a really good defensive back. That was the random thought I had watching him. But I definitely like what he did with Billy Turner. I think he'll be a really good guard. And he's like the incognito antidote. Awesome guy off the field, mean streak on it, perfect pick. And that was probably my favorite pick of theirs other than Landry. Those 2 picks definitely did it for me for the Dolphins.
What about the Ravens? I think they had a great draft. I love that they. I'm going to start by talking from the bottom, actually. The fact that they traded a future pick to get Campanaro, I thought was a really great move. He's also, I think, a pretty great receiver. He's, obviously he's, in my opinion, underrated because I thought he was worth more than a 7th-round pick. The idea of him being able to run through some of those zones in the AFC North, I mean, when you have to deal with sort of the new landscape of the Cleveland Browns and their pass defense, having someone who's as good at running routes and as good at sort of exploiting the smaller tendencies that cornerbacks, give off. I think Campanaro was a smart pick, and then going up to get Keith Winning, in the 6th round, I thought was pretty smart. And then at the top of the draft, C.J. Mosley and Timmy Jernigan, I thought were fantastic picks for them. The Ravens always seem to pick these guys that seem, absolutely perfect, right? Of course, these guys are obviously Ravens players. You can't really think of them any other way. And getting both of those guys I thought was pretty good. And then being able to get Terrence Brooks in the 3rd. I know opinions on him seem to vary fairly widely, but I liked him a lot. And I think he's going to fit in really well with the Baltimore Ravens. I thought they had a good draft.
I wanted Brooks for Atlanta.
Terrence Brooks was my top free safety in this draft.
I don't know how he fell to the 3rd round. That's still.
I'm not sure.
I don't think that there's a better center safety from this draft than Terrence Brooks.
And I wasn't a fan of his, so I'm in the other side of the ledger here. I mean, when I watched him play, I didn't think that he had the athletic ability to be a center fielder in the NFL. He reminded me, because I've watched Pat Chung try to play center field in the NFL. And every time I see one of these players in college who's sort of like a tweener and doesn't really like have a role in terms of having sort of like the ability to flip his hips and play center field in the NFL, but the team tries to play them there, it doesn't work out very well. I actually think Avery Patterson, the guy they signed as a UDFA, might be a better safety than Terrence Brooks.
Oh, come on, man.
I like Avery Patterson, but
And
Jernigan too. I wasn't a huge Jernigan fan. I wasn't a huge Crockett Gilmore fan for where they got him. I wasn't a huge Taliaferro fan, and now he had the other issue off the field. I did like the Mosley pick, and I liked the Wenning pick. And I like the Campanaro pick too, but I don't know. I'm not the biggest fan of the Florida State guys.
Is that because of off-field stuff?
For the Florida State guys?
Yeah.
I mean, I think Jernigan is I think Jernigan is pretty mediocre. And I think Brooks he doesn't compliment Elam that well to me. I think Patterson compliments him better, to be honest. But I didn't like the Elam pick last year either, so maybe the Ravens should have listened to me about safeties.
Although this is the same guy that also picked Ed Reed and DeJuan Landry, and I mean I kind of trust Ozzie on safety more than.
DeJuan Landry was so good.
DeJuan Landry was good for the scheme.
He was a strong safety. He's basically what Matt Elam was. They got DeJuan Landry a lot later in the draft than they got Elam last year.
Yeah. I'm just saying, for the scheme, DeJuan Landry was good safety.
Value, though. Value. Anyway, who else did you like in this draft, Arif? Who did you not like? I want to hear who we didn't like.
The Bengals.
Oh, no one liked the Bengals.
The Bengals auto-drafted.
They really did.
The thing with their draft is the best pick that they made, I think, was their 5th or 6th round pick when they got Marquise Flowers, who is an intriguing nickel linebacker type of player, which is important in the NFL. And I think he has a lot of upside there, and I think the value is very good there. But besides that, their draft was just a whole bunch of garbage. I mean, getting Jeremy Hill in the 2nd round still doesn't make sense to me. Like, people's opinions were split about him, which was fine. And I'm all good for bringing in a guy to complement Gio Bernard, but bringing in a guy in the 2nd round who isn't very good and has severe character issues is kind of iffy to me. And then, what was it? They got Bodine in the 3rd round. Bodine was barely draftable. I mean, that guy's on-field awareness and just his overall technical ability was awful. Then, I mean, A.J. McCarron is A.J. McCarron. Will Clark looks like Tarzan, plays like Jane. It was just it wasn't a pretty draft. I like Darqueze Dennard. I just don't like him in the 1st round. I thought that was a way too high of a pick on a maxed out player, and I think best case scenario, he basically has to become an incredibly good technician to counter the fact that he's very physically mediocre, and at best he becomes a high-end number 2 corner. It was a bad draft. They could have taken Teddy, they could have taken Manziel. I mean, they could have upgraded their quarterback position. There was better corners available. They could have taken Verrett, but whatever. They ruined it. They ruined the draft.
I wasn't a fan of the Patriots draft. I like Easley. I love Easley, but was he worth the spot coming off of his 2nd ACL surgery in as many years?
I would say
I'm not a fan of Garoppolo. I had a 7th round grade on him. Stork, but he's not going to start anytime soon. James White, it was, hey, let's draft for the bottom of our roster, is what the Patriots draft looked like.
I mean, No, actually, what I think the Patriots did, and I said this when it happened, they easily picked first of all, they weren't going to get him after the second round. They wanted to get him in a trade down, but they couldn't because they knew that Seattle was going to take him at 32. So they decided to take him and run because they wanted the compliment to Will Fork. And I think it's a good risk because if he's not injured, he's probably a top 10 pick. So I didn't really have too much of an issue with that. Garoppolo was the pick I had the biggest problem with, but after Nicholas was off the board, they didn't want to take a tight end because they saw them all as same value later in the draft and in free agency. So, I mean, I didn't love the pick. I understand how it goes with the philosophy. I mean, that was my least favorite pick in the draft. I would have taken Garoppolo in the third. I actually like Garoppolo more than other people because I didn't assume he was going to have to start right away. And he's not going to in New England. He goes to a situation where he can learn. He's literally modeled his entire college game after Tom Brady. So, worst case, I mean, the Patriots didn't have as many needs as people think they did. The needs they did have were on the line, and they got Stork, Halapio, and Fleming. All three of whom can start in their system. They have to I don't even know how to pronounce his name, but a new O-line coach who's pretty good developing talent. They just lost Scarnecchia, but their biggest weakness last year was on the offensive line by far, especially since they had no young talent there. They had to get rid of Wendell and Connolly. So I really didn't have an issue with it. And then Gallen and White later on, I mean, they'll be role players. But the Patriots had a lot of young talent on offense. I mean, Dobson set the record for most receptions for rookie under Belichick last year, and he was injured in the games. And I think that Gronkowski will be back next year. We got Ridley and Vereen. We got guys like Edelman who stepped up. LaFell is somebody who, for a third option, is pretty decent. So I didn't really have an issue with what they did. And their defense looks scary this year if everyone plays up the potential. I mean, they got Revis, so they got Jamie Collins year 2. So I just think that people sort of overestimate how many needs the Patriots had. I don't think they had that many needs.
I also like Shemaya Thomas' competition for Steve Gregory.
Of course you do.
I mean, yeah, but I think I wasn't as high as people usually tend to think I am on Georgia Tech players regarding him. But I mean, I had a relatively early, day 3 grade on him. Like I thought he was a 4th round pick maybe, and coming in at the end of the 6th was pretty. A pretty good value for a guy who has a real nose for the ball and pretty solid instincts. Plays well downhill and is very physical. Plays a lot bigger than his size of 5'90". So I mean, he can definitely be an enforcer in the middle of the field when he's on the field for you guys.
Like I said, the only pick of theirs that I really liked was that Jeremy Gallen pick. I think he was definitely an underrated receiver coming out of the draft. Basically every receiver at the bottom of the draft is underrated. But I don't know. It just feels like what Scott said. It just feels like they just grabbed a bunch of guys. I don't think even need was all that important in terms of evaluating how good that draft was. I think they kept on leaving more interesting talents on the board. I think they got mediocre talents at those positions, relative to who was available. I guess I like Halapio, but I just don't. I mean, this draft is just so mediocre and bland, and it keeps on finding ways to get a lot less talent than what was available at the position that they drafted, or just in general. Even if they don't have that many needs, then they should be going off of just a generic talent big board, and it doesn't look like they did that either, because it doesn't look like they got as much talent as they invested in terms of draft capital. I just didn't think it was very good draft.
Yeah, I mean, I can agree with that to an extent, although I think that where they did have needs were on the line, because their interior line last year was terrible. It was really bad. Probably the biggest weakness on their team, especially since Brady gets happy feet anytime anyone even comes close to his knees now. So, I mean, they needed to improve the interior line. I think that they had targeted Stork, and right after Stork got picked, I mean, Cincinnati traded up for Russell Bodine. There clearly was a little run going on there on centers right after that happened. So we'll see what happens, but I do think that there's a good chance that at least 3 or 4 players from this class end up starting next year for New England. I think that Stork's going to start. I think there's a chance Fleming could end up being pressed into action once Vollmer gets injured again, and I think Easley's going to start. So James White also is somebody who, with fantasy players, definite sleeper. there weren't too many drafts that I didn't like. I'm trying to think. The Titans, I wouldn't have taken Lewin at 11. But I kind of like the rest of their picks.
Really?
The Bills.
I can. Yeah, I guess.
The Bills. I'm so sad that Sammy Watkins is going to be completely let down by the fact that E.J. Manuel's his quarterback and he's in a terrible organization.
E.J. Manuel is so much better than Taj Boyd, though.
True, but and Watkins was great there. I don't think he complements the people there that well. I mean, I think Robert Woods is sort of like Sammy Watkins light. I think I'm just not sure that it's the best situation for him. I wish he would have gone to a different team.
The thing is with the Bills draft is like all the picks kind of seem good. No, that's not true. The Watkins pick, the Quandro pick, and like the Trell pick all seem good in a vacuum, but just in terms of the situations, it's not good. I mean, they gave up more for the Sammy Watkins than they're basically giving up another top 10 pick than the Falcons gave up for Julio Jones.
Pretty much, yeah.
And they're not the same level of prospect at all.
Not. And you're bringing him into a situation where you're kind of hoping. I saw Hank Jones actually talk about this on Twitter, where you're bringing in a wide receiver not to complement your quarterback, but you're bringing in a receiver in hopes of making your quarterback better, which is not why you should be drafting wide receivers. So they basically just wasted 2 top 10 picks on a player who's really not going to do anything to make their awful quarterback any less awful. I like the philosophy that they're having on the offensive line, just drafting like these big people, but I mean, E.J. Manuel is still their quarterback, and that lets everything down. And then the Preston Brown pick was super weird.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, that was a weird pick. And
they drafted.
I know some people really like Cockrell. He doesn't play the run. He's scared to play the run, and it's just not pretty to watch at all.
I thought he was fairly inconsistent for what he was supposed to be going into the season. But I think in terms of the Sammy Watkins pick, I just feel like, so the issue, of course, is that the amount of investment that they had in him is not commensurate with his absolute value in terms of talent. But I think also another issue with him is that in a particularly deep receiver class, and I know he was the best receiver in the class, fine, I understand that. But in a particularly deep receiver class, does it really make sense to give up that much to get that marginally better at receiver? Like if they had stuck where they were, they get like Odell Beckham, or if they had traded up a little bit, maybe not to the Brown spot, but just a little bit more, they could have gotten Mike Evans. And I mean, Mike Evans makes sense given sort of the size of the receiver corps. I just feel like the options that they had available to them at receiver were definitely not as huge a drop off from like 2 to 9 or 4 to 9 as sort of that trade would imply. Like that's my biggest issue with it. I think Sammy Watkins is clearly the best receiver in the class, but just the amount that they gave up for him makes no sense. Given the
but then speaking of a team that waited for their receiver, you got Carolina, who now their number 1 receiver next year is going to be Kelvin Benjamin. And that's just not a good situation to be in.
No.
Cam Newton. I just feel so bad for the guy. I mean, Benjamin's going to probably eat a little bit, but he could have done so much better. That draft was weird to me. I didn't like the Ely pick either. Although I'm guessing that they probably, with the Hardy stuff dropping, maybe that has something to do with it. But
I guess, yeah.
I mean, I didn't like that pick either at all. Ben Wickery, I think, is a safety. I don't think he's a cornerback, and I think they're going to play him at corner.
Mm-hmm.
That draft, I mean, Trey Turner is probably my favorite pick.
Yeah, same.
Yeah, that to me is not a ringing endorsement then. I mean, I'm not a huge fan of Trey Turner, but no, actually, I mean, we could talk more about the Panthers draft if you want to, but I did want to point out that if we're going to talk about good teams with bad drafts, Seattle, I think, takes the cake. That draft was. I think that was the worst draft, wasn't it? Like,
I'd still go with the Bengals.
I think the Colts could claim worst draft too. But,
The Colts got good players, I thought. They just got players that didn't really make sense.
but Seattle, oof.
I mean, I'll be completely honest, I didn't know who Justin Britt was until...
I only knew who he was because I watched a lot of SEC football. I'll put it that way.
His brother's a Patriot, or was a Patriot. Wesley Britt.
Great. So when I was tracking the draft using the consensus big board that I put together, Justin Britt was the first person that did not show up in anybody's top 200. Like, it's just like mind-boggling to me that somebody that could go in the second round would not show up in this consensus big board, which I understand like has a bunch of issues, and it doesn't. I don't think it rates players like between 150 and 200 very well. But it's just last year. I think it would have been Daron Harmon from the Patriots that would have set off the consensus. But I think that one made a little bit more sense than Justin Britt. But being the first team to go completely off of what a consensus value board or a consensus talent board, would have you believe is happening, I think is a good sign that your draft is already going sideways. And after I looked at Justin Britt, I don't see it. Why is he a second-round pick?
Apparently, he had a good game against Clowney, and that's like I think the hype around him.
He really didn't have that good of a game against Clowney.
Yeah, I was gonna say I thought it was mediocre.
Like,
I had like a 6th or 7th round grade on him, and somehow went at 64.
Yeah, I don't think that Pete Carroll's very good at evaluating offensive linemen, and I didn't like a lot of their picks. I mean, Cassius Marsh. I did not like him at UCLA, and apparently he's a bad dude off the field too. A really bad dude. My favorite pick of theirs was probably, I loved Eric Pinkins. He's a safety I've been high on for a really long time. Their 6th-round pick from San Diego State, a cornerback who actually kicked to safety because they didn't have any safeties other than Barry, who was on the Giants. I was a big fan of Pinkins, and I liked the Pierre Louis pick, and I liked the Norwood pick, but on the other hand, little early for Paul Richardson. They already cut Garrett Scott because he had a heart ailment, I think.
Yeah.
And
I really like that. I like Garrett Scott.
Kiero Small is interesting because I think he broke like 40 face masks during practices at Arkansas because he played both linebacker and running back. Ben Albright's a fan of his. Ben Albright's a fan of Kiero Small.
I think that might be the best draft stat I've ever heard.
Yeah, like 37 broken face masks. Like set a record.
But
I will say that I like Kevin Norwood and Kevin Pierre-Louis sort of in a vacuum. I don't like either of them in the 4th round. Norwood because of his age. I believe he's like 26 or 25 or something like that.
I wasn't aware.
Yeah, Norwood's older than I am.
Yeah, he's an old dude. Maybe I'm exaggerating. I don't know. I just remember he's an old dude. I'll just look on his Wikipedia page and see how wrong I am. No, he's 24. Maybe I'm wrong. He'll be 25 when the season starts.
He's as old as that.
Yeah. But like the issue that I have with both of those picks is that it's just I don't think they're 4th-round picks. I understand why you'd pick KPL if you're Seattle. You've got like this athleticism mold that you really want to, you really need to follow. You got to have players who are special in some way at their position from a measurable standpoint. That's just how they draft. I understand that, but I think both of them definitely could have been had later, and they really should have just traded down one of those 4th-round picks, not pick Jimmy Staten and then pick KPL and Kevin Norwood in the 5th round, and then pick a player that has the possibility of starting in the 4th round.
I agree. Well, we're coming up on the last 10 minutes that I'm able to be here. Do we want to put on some film of a prospect and kind of break them down live?
Let's do it.
I've got a video of Sean Oakman pulled up, or if anyone else wants to throw another prospect out there.
I'm up for anything.
Sean Oakman, here we come. Shit, how do I do the screen? There we go. Screen share.
Is it capture that we're supposed to use?
No, it's screen share. I got it.
Oh, okay.
Okay. So, let's go. I mean, immediately his explosion just kind of like stands out. Like his first step is pretty impressive.
Immediately you realize he's very tall.
Yes, I mean he's 6'9", 275. He's massive, and he plays with good leverage.
That worries me too. For a guy that large, and it kind of shows up. He just kind of has issues with leverage. I mean, he's just a really big human being, and it's kind of hard to carry around. But he is a freak, so.
I mean, he has showed the ability to stay low when he fires off, but it's just inconsistent.
Right.
We watching Sean Oakmonster?
Yes, indeed.
Yeah, I've trademarked that, by the way.
Okay.
So.
Can you?
Yep, I mailed it to myself. I thought I told you this.
Josh Norris let you? I feel like.
Okay, that's right.
You have to fight him for that moniker.
So, can any of you see the YouTube video? Because all I'm seeing is this black box.
Oh, is it
I
not
tried
working?
to do this.
Yeah, no, okay.
All right,
I tried to do this a while ago with my group film study, which actually got like 40 people involved, which is really cool. But
Cool.
pretty much what I found out worked best, and this is something that we can do moving forward, is to send the actual videos out via Twitter and just have them open it in their own browsers, and then everyone watches together.
That makes much more sense. So
Because it slows everything down, and it makes it a lot harder to do otherwise.
So we're looking Oakman versus Texas Tech.
I can get it up.
Hang on. I think I might have it to where it'll go through here.
Oh my god,
Let's
I just
turn
went
it
to
off
this
for a
page on Draft Breakdown. That dude doesn't have a neck. That's
Well,
awesome.
would he?
Okay, how about now? Is it working?
No.
Nope.
Yeah, you should just tweet out the link, and we can all retweet it.
All right, that works.
Right up front, he has no idea what he's doing with his hands. Absolutely no clue.
Yeah, he's definitely.
He's got long arms.
He's not using them.
Yeah, he's not using them at all. And then, yeah, double team, disengaged at the line, gets held up.
How's his player recognition? Does he do well against the option? Does he?
I mean, it's what it is. It's average. It's not great. It's not awful. It's just, hey, it's a pass. Hey, it's a run. Like, Texas Tech is pretty simple. Like, they don't do a lot of option. And he just got thrown to the ground by the left tackle. Yep, sounds about right.
He plays. I actually thought that his tape was very similar to Aaron Lynch's last year. I thought they had very similar tape, which I don't know if it's good for Oakman or bad for Lynch, because I liked Aaron Lynch, so I'm all about it. There's one play where he just, like, shoulders the tackle, like, into the quarterback. He just uses pure power and just, like, lifts up.
Just like he just kind of throws his body into the offensive lineman.
Yeah.
I don't like his motor.
That's what he does.
I really don't.
I just think. This is the first time I've seen him literally ever, because I don't even know why I'm on this podcast. I'm not really a part of Draft Twitter.
I just got to the.
I'm not really a part of Draft
You're
Twitter
part of
either.
it now. You're a part of Draft Twitter now.
Whether you like it or not.
But no, this is the first time I've seen him literally at all, and it looks like from what I've seen, actually I think his greatest potential is in terms of his ability to defend against the run, which is probably not the first thing people think of. But as soon as he sees that the play is going to be a run, he locks out his arms. I think he knows that he can control gaps if he needs to. I don't know if that's what his projected role is going to be. And I know that he knows that he can set the edge. I just think that he's a little bit aggressive in terms of run support. Again, I've only literally seen 2 minutes of him. But,
Is this supposed to be a first-round guy?
I mean, there are people who, like Justice Mosqueda, is pretty much like proclaimed him a future top 10 pick.
I mean, he could be.
On like raw athleticism, sure, but
his hand technique is nowhere near where it needs to be.
You mean shoulder
He's-
technique, right? 'Cause
mean,
he's using
yeah,
his shoulder
but
way
I
more than
think
he's using
that-
his hands.
I think sometimes with guys like Oakman, you get a little bit caught up in some of the nuances and you sort of miss the forest for the trees. Because
He's not
you
missing
can
the forest
coach
for the
hand
trees. He's getting
technique,
blocked out every play.
but you can coach hand technique. I don't think you can coach his bursts off the line and some of the things he can do. And right now, again, I would probably rate him around the same way I had Aaron Lynch last year, which was like an early second-round pick. But he has a whole other year to improve before he's even going to be drafted. So,
Well, I mean, so the question with drafting him is how much you trust your defensive line coach. Like, if you're the New York Jets and you've got Carl Dunbar, then yeah, absolutely draft this guy. I mean, there's no
But
question.
his
about it.
burst isn't ridiculous off the line. I mean, he's going just as fast as everybody else. Like, he's not the first one off the snap. He's not. I'm not seeing this great burst. He's quick, but he's not. I mean,
I think
the
for
guy on the other end is impressing me
enough.
more. Their left end impresses me more than Oakman does.
number 99.
Yeah.
Yeah, he
Way
just
more.
sort of flashed me for a second.
Yeah, just way more than Oakman. Oakman's like, he gets locked up one-on-one by the left tackle more often than not. Just
Who is this guy?
yeah,
Who
then
is
the left end.
92?
Yeah,
That's
no,
what I'm
hold on,
saying.
yeah.
The rest of the line's popping.
Whoa!
Oakman's not. Oh
He's
look, there he is.
big.
92 guy.
Wait, who is this guy?
This guy's good.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. The left end's better than Oakman.
Yo, but that
Jamal
might not be a diss on Oakman. This dude's pretty good. Hold on.
Jamal Palmer.
This guy looks like a legitimate. 92 looks like a legitimate player.
He's 245, man. He's gonna need to put on some weight.
Jeez, yeah.
How many guys come out and are
Good.
tiny, like 245, playing end when they first start,
Whoa.
or they move to outside linebacker?
Can we make this conversation about this guy?
Yeah.
Holy
Can we just shift gears here for a second?
Because
Holy cow.
Oakman's getting locked up every play. Yeah. Oh, finally flashed. Last play of the entire thing.
I'm
Friggin'
still
oh my
watching
God.
Oakman if I'm being honest, man.
I
5
stopped, to
minutes
be
of
honest.
film.
Dude, he just knocked down the right tackle. I mean, and he was laid off the line and doing that too. Dude, I like this guy.
92 is more impressive than
Jamal Palmer?
Oakman.
I will say that Jamal Palmer jumped out to me there. That was pretty crazy.
Let's put on some other Jamal Palmer. I mean, I guess Sean Oakman film.
Yeah, because I don't think you're gonna find. What year is Palmer?
He's a junior.
He's a
Oh,
junior
alright.
this year. 6'3", 245. He's just Houston sized, man. I'm cool with that.
He's a 9 tech.
Yeah.
Or outside linebacker in the 3-4.
Another guy
I'd
who I
rather
like.
have him be a Leo or a 9 tech than an outside linebacker.
So I don't know how much you guys have started watching these prospects for next year, but another defensive end who I really like, who's kind of in a similar position to this guy, is C.J. Johnson at Ole Miss, opposite, and I don't know how to pronounce his name, Nkademiche. C.J.
Nkademiche.
Johnson is really good.
He's
And-
very, very good.
I think there's a chance that he could just do some really big things next year. He really impressed me when I watched him. He's better than any of the Missouri guys, I think.
Vic Beasley.
Yeah,
That's the guy.
yeah.
I can't wait till Beasley bulks up 15 pounds and loses all of his burst.
I don't see that happening.
Are you serious?
I don't see that
It's gonna
happening.
happen.
I think he's going to be like Robert Mathis. By the time he gains that much weight, he's going to be 28, 29 years old.
Yeah.
Maybe.
I'm not
I'm
a
not paying attention.
I
just put
wasn't.
on some more
Yeah,
Jamal
I'm
Palmer
with
film.
Ben. I wasn't the biggest fan when I watched him last year, and I actually liked him more this year when I watched the defensive tackle next to him, Grady Jarrett. He flashed in a couple of games I was watching of Jarrett's because I wanted to get to know him a little better. But I mean, we'll see how he does this year. I'm still a little bit skeptical.
I think in terms of the edge rushing guys, I think you really got to look at Dante Fowler and then Mario Edwards at Florida and Florida State. I think those are the two big edge guys because both of them are freaks. You know, maybe not on the level that you get from Oakman or Beasley or Gregory, but they're also much more polished and they just play with a higher level of awareness, which I kind of value. I kind of like guys who can play football.
How about Brock Hicking?
I mean, he's
I
not
actually
I
am
saw-
going to be sitting down with Shaq Mason and breaking down Grady Jarrett in the near future. We have, like, there's a system at Tech where you just, like, have access to all the All-22 film for, like, every single game. So I'm doing that next week with him, I think. But anyways, I've got a baseball show that I'll go on now at 10. So, this was fun, guys. We need to do this again in the future, the near future.
Yeah,
Peace out.
definitely. Totally.
All right, man. You guys have a good night.
Bye. I mean, he's no Jamal Palmer on the edge, but no, there was another guy who jumped
Texas
out-
Tech right tackle was just bad.
It's possible, but
Well,
There's another
I
guy.
just put on the Sean Oakman versus Oklahoma film, just to see, and I mean it ain't bad for Jamal Palmer. I don't mean that as like damning by faint praise. I just mean like, yeah, I mean he looks like what he looks like. The problem
thing
is
with
the
the
first
good-
couple of plays aren't that useful because they're like screens and stuff. Like I'm not a bunch I can do to evaluate him there.
yeah, the thing with Oakman is that we'll see what happens this year. But I definitely, when I first watched him, because I watched a couple of games at this point before the Texas Tech game again, I saw Aaron Lynch, and I think that Lynch was undervalued because he went round 5, and Oakman, we'll see if he's able to continue to improve this year. But for now, I'd probably have an early second on him, to be completely fair.
I think the
In terms of
I
what
think
I've
the case
seen.
with Oakman is just in the offseason where we get so caught up in what we think that they're going to be next year that the hype train. I mean, a year from today, a year ago from today, we're talking about Anthony Barr as the not be hype because of just what we saw in just their athletic ability, and whether they progressed or didn't. I mean, that kind of that affected them then, and now we're doing. I mean, that's just going to happen with guys like Randy Gregory, who just isn't very good at all. Where we're talking about a guy as like a top. I'm seeing him projected like top 3, top 5. And same thing with Oakman, where he's getting projected top 15. Where I don't really see that right now.
Yeah, I don't either. I will say, I just saw the Les Mis poster on your wall, and that's pretty badass. But on the other hand, one of the weirder things that happened last draft season that I noticed, and I was thinking about it recently, for some reason, a lot of draft Twitter was really high in Aaron Donald in the summer, and then they backed off on him because, like, all of mainstream Twitter told them to calm down on Aaron Donald, and they ended up being right about Aaron Donald.
Well,
It was the weirdest thing, in retrospect, I think I've ever seen on draft Twitter.
Here's where I stood on Aaron Donald. So I looked at him in the preseason, and I was like, wow, this guy looks like he's going to be like a really good, like, situational pass rusher in the NFL. And then I was told, no, you're wrong. He's tiny. I was like, okay, that's all good. But like, I kind of stuck with it. I was like, this guy's going to be really. And then he was, in my opinion, he was the same player this year that he was the year before and the year before that, but he was just producing more, which is just kind of the nature of his game. Because, but he was the same, leverage, quickness, high motor, type of player who would get washed out against double team kind of guy that he was the past 2 years of his career at Pitt. But because he was producing at such a high level, he got noticed, and then he got bumped up to like Geno Atkins God status during the offseason because his combine was so good. And then like people were projecting him at number 5 to the Raiders, and I was like, this guy is still the same, high second round situational pass rushing defensive tackle that he was, a year ago. But I'm sleep. And then but to be fair, he went to literally the perfect situation that he could have gone to in the first round.
Oh, absolutely.
Because he's never, in his entire, at least in his rookie season, he will never see a double team. Ever.
No.
Ever.
And that's the thing with him. He needs to always be working with half the man if he wants to be effective. And that's going to be the situation he's going to be in. And he's going to be a monster. And I think he's probably going to have like an 8-sack, 10-sack season. And everyone's going to tell me I'm wrong. But I won't be.
In our group chat, I just left you with more Sean Oakman film with the intent of looking at this Jamal Palmer guy. Dude, I think the reason that we haven't heard about him is because he's got this terrible, off the ball reaction time. He's just awful off the line, and then everything else is actually pretty good.
Which is why I think he'd be a good linebacker.
Jamal Palmer?
Yeah, you put him at 3-4 linebacker. He stands up. Yeah. He gets a second to diagnose and then go.
Oh, Oakman just did something that was good.
Hey.
Now, one team that I know.
I'm getting a lot of Oakman. Screw Oakman. I'm done with him.
I'm getting a lot of
like 3-4 defensive end. That's Oakman. He's a 5-tech. He is Tyson Jackson.
Yeah, 5-tech.
He's Tyson Jackson. That is who he is. That is who he is as a pro. That's who he is long term. Where do you take Tyson Jackson? In the 4th round.
Or you sign him to a $30 million contract.
That was a stupid contract.
Ultimately,
that was a dumb contract.
Look, regardless of what you think about Oakman, he's going to show up at Indy next year. He's going to run like a 4.6 and be like 265 pounds, and then he's going to go like top 15. So,
and people are going to call him the next Clowney when he's not anywhere close.
Yeah, I hope people wouldn't do that.
Maybe I've just been spoiled watching a lot of South Carolina football.
Another draft I really liked.
Undraftable.
Now, I've gotten some pushback on Twitter for this, but I love the Texans draft. I loved every pick, even the Tom Savage pick, because it happened in round 5. I just hope... I think that... My theory is that O'Brien talked to them and said that he will leverage everything to get Hackenberg in 2 years. He just wants Hackenberg and just wants to build a team around Hackenberg. So,
get rid of the Tom Savage pick. I actually really
Tom Savage loses the quarterback job. Will he try to transfer the pick?
He might. He's not the kind of guy who takes losing easily.
No.
Kind of has to deal with it.
Very easily. He takes and he leaves.
If you told me that their first 4 picks would be Jadeveon Clowney, Xavier Su'a-Filo, Louis Nix, and C.J. Fiedorowicz.
Oh God,
that was ridiculous. That's
3 top 15 players to me.
Yeah,
Easy.
all 3 of those 4 players were in my top 11, and that was just a ridiculous haul. But
I really like their defensive line.
I mean, they didn't draft a quarterback, and that bothers me. I mean, they did, but he's freaking.
It's the same thing Jacksonville did last year, and nobody cared because it was Jacksonville.
Well, I thought that was stupid too, and. And I still kind of think that's stupid because I'm not a big Blake Bortles fan. But, I mean, there was better there. But when you look at the 2 drafts, I think there was much better quarterback talent overall in this draft. Like I would rather have a Blake Bortles than EJ Manuel.
All I know is I hope they cut Justin Tuggle at the end of the offseason so Atlanta can sign him and bring him back where he belongs. Other than
back
that,
Yawin Smallwood.
No.
That was my favorite. Falcons pick was Yawin.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Why, so
I
they
didn't
can cut Akeem Dent?
I mean, actually, I liked the Rashid Hickman pick. I think that was my favorite Falcons pick.
Oh, that was good too, actually.
That was awesome value.
Mine was the Jake Matthews pick because it was, let's not overthink ourselves and go get Taylor Lewin. Let's not do something stupid. Let's just take the best player that falls right to us in Jake Matthews.
Well, that
was my favorite pick.
No-brainer, but that was a good pick. Hagman was a good pick. Desmond Southward, I mean...
I was not a fan.
I thought he was a prospect when I watched him.
They think he's this block of clay that's very moldable, has great athleticism. You know, he does have great athleticism. He is very moldable, but instinct-wise, I don't see it. I think he's going to back up William Ward this year, and then next year they're going to try and make him the starting free safety. But as of right now, Dwight Lowery is the starting free safety. They're kind of just punting on free safety till next year. I think they take them high.
And instead they
like
took
White
4
Lowry.
linebackers. That is awesome. I actually really like that they took 4 linebackers.
Well, when you got Stanley Mapanga and Akeem Dent as 2 of your main backup linebackers, you kind of need some linebackers.
I will say,
4. I loved it. I loved it.
I will say I'm not a fan of Shembos, and this has nothing to do with the off-field stuff, which is questionable. Although I also think that
Atlanta's got the teams have way better background people than we have.
I mean, I think that the off-field stuff aside, I wasn't a fan of his tape. I don't think he's very good.
Yeah.
I wasn't really a fan of his tape.
I think as a backup inside linebacker and special teams guy, it's fine.
The Devontae Freeman pick was that was great.
That was my
I
favorite
love that pick.
outside of Jake Matthews because that says, hey, we want to go back to a zone blocking scheme.
And I love Tyler Starr in round 7. I think that was a good pick too.
I think that was
he
the
impressed
best
me a
defensive
lot.
pick of the draft.
He impressed me a lot on tape. I think Higman's still going to be a beast for you, but I think Tyler Starr is a good pick too.
I think Starr is going to be the long-term rotational pass rusher once OC leaves. And you got Massaquoi, Bierman, Starr, and then once Bierman leaves, you're going to have Bartu move over to the strong side.
So let's do a quick talk about Duval. I'm gonna get Jaguars Twitter in here. What did we think about Duval?
I liked it.
I liked all of it.
Yeah, I mean, if they like Blake Bortles, obviously. I think they considered trading down to number 6 to get him, if I remember correctly. And they just decided they'd just rather have him, which is fine. I think the Marquise Lee pick at the sort of the top of the second was fine. I think the Allen Robinson pick was great. I don't really have strong opinions about the Litter pick. I love the Telvin Smith pick. I liked the Aaron Colvin pick. I loved the Storm Johnson pick. How could you not love that pick? I thought it was a really good draft. Obviously, a lot of it rides on Blake Bortles, who, I personally, I'm not a huge fan of him. But mostly that's because I'm a huge fan of guys who are already polished coming out. I don't really buy into upside as much as sort of other people do. But I mean, that's just a philosophy thing. Clearly, under certain philosophies, Blake Bortles is clearly one of the top quarterbacks in the class, and they grabbed him using that philosophy, and that's fine. I would have done the draft a lot differently, but in terms of sticking to philosophy, building sort of a long-term franchise, I thought it was a great draft.
I think that the Bortles pick, the thing I liked is that it seems like that they are committing to build around his strengths, which I like, because they're getting the interior line because he's really good at sort of making his own pocket, and I think that they got him receivers that he can work with too, and I like that they got him Storm Johnson. I just would not have taken him at 3. I just didn't like the value. He wasn't the quarterback I would have taken in this class. I have a feeling that Caldwell and Bradley might have been won over a bit by the personality when they interviewed him, which I'm not sure how much I like that, because I think if that is the deciding factor in why you're picking a quarterback, that shouldn't be the deciding factor.
I think they basically said as much. Well, they didn't say as much, but they said a lot about his personality, the first, time that they met. I mean, there's a story out there about sort of how he entered the room, or whatever phrase you want to use, and sort of how he captured their attention. I mean, I think personality played a huge role in sort of who they selected. I'm with you, Ethan, on sort of people overvaluing personality in these situations. But again, I definitely understand why they did it. That's why I like the Cleveland Browns draft too. I'm not a huge Manziel in the first fan, but I love what they did to get him, and I love that they stuck with the philosophy. By the same token, I like what Jacksonville did. I know that picking him at 3 was a bit odd, but they clearly have him a tier above the other quarterbacks, and so picking him at 3, you pick him at 3.
It kind of makes me think of, and I know I'm going to sound like a homer here, it does kind of make me think of the Falcons taking Matt Ryan at 3 in a year when no one was a first-round quarterback. And you had Matt Ryan at 3 and Flacco at 18. But, that's the same thing we heard this year. There is no first-round quarterback. You hear that every friggin' year except for the year that Love came in.
Right.
So last year there was one first-round quarterback, and it was E.J. Manuel.
Well, you see what I mean? There's always a single first-round quarterback. A quarterback will go in the first because some team is either going to be too stupid and take the wrong guy, or a team is going to be smart enough to realize that this guy's the perfect fit for their coaching, their GM, everything they want to do. Matt Ryan was perfect for Atlanta in 2008. I think Blake Bortles is perfect for Jacksonville. He's from Florida, right around Orlando. He went to UCF. He's a hometown guy who's playing at a hometown team. I don't see why you don't do something like that. I don't see why you don't bring in the guy who's going to be your franchise for years, build around him. You've already got the franchise left tackle. You've already got the guy who's going to protect his ass. So why do you worry about the rest? I mean, you get some wide receivers that, yeah, you need them. You get a guard. You get a cornerback who's going to potentially be a great corner. You get Telvin Smith, who I absolutely love. I loved what Jacksonville did.
What a great pick that was.
I had a top 15 grade on Telvin Smith.
I had a first-round grade on him, too. That was a steal.
I wanted Atlanta to take him in the third round instead of Desmond Southward.
Yeah, I mean, the thing with, I'm with Arif here in terms of how my draft philosophy is. I don't want to put so much stock in what the player could be, because that's a game that can get you fired. Obviously we're not in a position where it will get us fired, but at the same time, when you look at Jacksonville's class, their entire class is really banking on what the player will be. Blake Bortles, his tools are phenomenal, but what he is now is a quarterback with, really, really scary mechanical issues with his feet and his accuracy. His decision making can get a little iffy. Great size, great pocket presence, good athlete. He's shown that he can really put the ball all over the field. Marquise Lee, he needs to be healthy. First and foremost, he needs to learn how to catch the ball. Allen Robinson needs to start playing like he's 6'2" and stop playing like he's 5'5". I actually like Brandon Linder. Aaron Colvin needs to be healthy and needs to be more physical. I love Telvin Smith. That pick was awesome, and he's going to be just an animal in that defense. That was easily my favorite pick that they had. I like the Chris Smith pick. That's getting a lot of hate. People don't like Chris Smith, and that's bad, because I think that especially in their defense, where you need a defensive end who has great closing speed, burst off the line, I think that's exactly what Chris Smith brings as a Leo, and he can be, at the very least, productive for Jacksonville in that role. And when you're getting a guy like that in the 6th round...
Fifth round.
Was that 6th round?
No, 5th round. A guy like him, I had a second-round grade on him.
I had a near top 100 grade on him.
Yeah.
So,
I'll be honest.
That pick as well. The center from UVA wasn't good, and I don't understand why he got picked. But
6th round.
I disagree with a lot of center picks in this draft, I guess. And then the thing with Storm Johnson is he looks the part and he flashes the ability to be a good running back. And obviously this is the 7th round, so why wouldn't you take a flyer on a running back? But he's a big running back who plays like a little running back, and he doesn't have very good vision, and he fumbles the ball a lot. He really never stood out to me as someone who, there's a lot of work to be done in order for him to become a good player. And I thought there were much better players available. They could have, if they're willing to take a risk, why not take Isaiah Crowell? He, in my opinion, was the best back in the class when evaluating from a pure talent standpoint. So why wouldn't you take a player like that in the 7th round? Or maybe take a dependable, tough-running guy like Antonio Andrews that late. But, I understand taking a guy like Storm Johnson that late in the draft because the risk-reward is so good. But I think overall, you're putting a lot of weight on the Jacksonville coaching staff, which is very good, might I say. But regardless, I think you're putting a lot of weight, and there's a lot of risk to be had there. So it's really a boom or bust class, in my opinion.
I will say that I was not a fan of Chris Smith in the draft. When I watched tape on him, it didn't impress me. And then after the draft, I watched Trey Flowers, who is bad, by the way. And Chris Smith just kept flashing on the tape. And so maybe I was just watching the wrong Chris Smith tape. I don't know.
You were watching Trey Flowers when you were trying to watch Chris Smith.
Maybe. Trey Flowers, is like a worse. He's just not very good. He made one really nice interception against Southern Miss, and otherwise he was sort of like very mediocre to me. But let's talk about the Eagles super quick. We're talking about all of our favorite teams. We have not talked about the Eagles yet. The Eagles had an interesting draft for sure. They took some prospects I really like. I love the Jordan Matthews pick. I think Jordan Matthews could destroy that offense. That really was the perfect pick for Philly.
And I think that's an understatement, too. I had Jordan Matthews rated as the top receiver in the class, much to the chagrin of almost the entire draft community. And fortunately, I get to be stuck with whether I'm going to be right or wrong about that. So that's perfect. Yeah, I think like everything that Jordan Matthews brings to the table, I think is perfect for what he's going to be doing in Philadelphia. He's going to be starting as the slot receiver. He's going to be able to work a lot of the zones in the middle of the field, and that's basic. That's his bread and butter right now. I think that he is just an incredibly intelligent player working underneath and being able to identify those zones and really work to the weaknesses of the defense. And Nick Foles is going to really, really like that. And I think people say he's a low upside player, but I think where his upside lies is just the ability to use his body better at the catch point. And it's not that it's bad right now, but I think it has the potential to be very dominant. And I think that after the catch, he's a very smart player after the catch. Really subtle quickness and very good vision as a runner. I think he's going to be perfect where he's just going to be able to work underneath. He's going to get a lot of targets and really pick up a lot of yards after the catch, and he's going to be a big issue in the red zone, especially with him and Zach Ertz playing in the slot. I was not a fan of the Marcus Smith pick in terms of the value. I like Marcus Smith. He was just more of a late second-round player to me rather than a late first-rounder. But I think right now he's actually learning Connor Barwin's spot, which I thought was interesting. I thought he'd be the guy who'd come in and learn the Predator spot, which is Trent Cole's spot. But I think that what they want is versatility among the pass rushers, which makes sense. And I think that what you're going to see a lot down the line is a lot more of Marcus Smith and Connor Barwin starting at outside linebacker rather than Trent Cole. And Trent Cole is going to get relegated to more of a situational role due to the fact that Marcus Smith is so much better in coverage. The Josh Huff pick I really, really like. I mean, the Eagles had two picks in a row of like two of my favorite receivers in the draft. Huff is going to come in. He's going to be kick returning, punt returning, probably fourth receiver. He's just hands, strong as hell after the catch. Very, very, very good athlete, very smart player. And I think going back to the smart aspect is every single player that the Eagles picked was a college graduate. I thought that was interesting. And I thought that really, really showed what the Eagles want to do in the locker room and further showed why Deshaun Jackson isn't there anymore. It's because he's a jerk, by the way. And so that was Josh Huff. Didn't like the Jalen Watt.
Is Josh Huff going to run the ball?
I saw some stuff about how they're planning on probably working a couple of jet sweeps a game for him, which is awesome. But I didn't like Jalen Watkins. I thought that was a weird pick. There were better corners on the board. I would have jumped with Glee if it was Pierre Desir, but alas, it was not to be. Or I would have been happy with Bashaud Breeland. And it was weird for me because the Eagles really want size at the cornerback position, and they stated that multiple times. And Bradley Fletcher's 6 foot, Kerry Williams is 6'1", and then they drafted a guy who's 5'10", who realistically in their defense would be playing in the slot, which is Brandon Boykin's spot. So he's probably going to be worked in as probably the fourth corner, and there's some speculation that he might get some testing at free safety. Ed Reynolds. Okay, I know you hate Ed Reynolds and you think he's Patrick Chung, but I think you think everyone's Patrick Chung.
I like Ed Reynolds. And Jalen Watkins measured in at 5'11 and a half at the combine. So
really?
Yes,
Yeah, I mean,
that makes sense.
Charm, so
He's
whatever.
the best Florida cornerback, so.
And he ran a 4.41. I mean, he can't be that bad, right?
I mean,
I'm trying to make you happier.
I don't like athletes. I like football players.
He played a lot of safety last year, which is why I think he's going to be more of like a big nickel than a real kind of thing. And I think they're going to move Boykin outside.
Well, no, the Eagles stated that they stated pretty that they're not going to move Boykin outside. They want to keep him in the slot, which is frustrating because Terry Williams sucks. So.
And off the field, you don't want Bashaud Breeland.
Oh, really? I didn't realize he was
been arrested 4 times.
You don't want him.
Off the field, he's awful. You don't want Bashaud Breeland.
One of the most.
Wait, why do we go I thought that was a great pick.
What?
Taylor Hart.
I was okay on that.
I thought Bo Allen was a great pick.
Because the thing about the Taylor Hart pick, not only reunited him,
he failed his 40.
He failed his 40. He didn't finish.
Yeah, Bo Allen failed his 40.
Yeah.
He could not finish it. He fell over. Exhaustion.
I mean,
he had a hamstring.
40 yards of his life. All right, he's fine.
He need to move like 2 yards of play. So.
My quick thoughts on the Eagles draft, though, I thought everybody was taken around early, outside of Jalen Watkins and Ed Reynolds. I love Ed Reynolds as a strong safety. I love Jalen Watkins as like a Charles Woodson type role, where you play him at free safety every now and again. You put him at, covering a big tight end as that's your guy for the game kind of thing. You put him on Jimmy Graham for that game. I think he could do something like that. I don't see him as a full-time free safety. I don't see him as a full-time nickel. He's a guy you just kind of move around and use for matchups.
Wait, you don't see value in drafting a guy who can cover Jimmy Graham?
I do see value in a guy who can cover Jimmy Graham. I don't see, first-round value in that kind of guy. I see fourth-round value. I see fifth-round value, and that's where you got him, 4th round. I would have loved Jalen Watkins to fall 3 more picks and go to Atlanta because I thought he could cover Jimmy Graham.
Well, I think that Marcus Smith was a reach. I thought we got a steal in Matthews and Huff. I love the Taylor Hart pick because you're reuniting Hart with Jerry Azzanaro, and the fact of the matter is, Hart could be one of the best defensive linemen in this class if he wasn't a frog.
If he learns technique.
Yeah, well, yeah.
Well, I mean,
he's a freak. He's huge. I mean, he's 6'6", 285 pounds. I mean, the dude has ridiculous strength and quickness for his size, and it's just a matter of working on getting out of his stance and
it's just literally his stance, right? That's his biggest issue. I mean,
yeah, and
I can teach him how to have a better stance.
Basically, when he comes out of his stance, he gets stood up, and all of his power is gone, and it's horrible. But when he actually gets things right, he looks like a monster. And having that in the 5th round rather than taking a guy like Rashid Hageman, super not 2nd round was good value for Rashid Hageman, but if someone was going to take him super early where a guy has those kind of issues, or let's say a team takes Stephon Tuitt in the 2nd round, I think there's risk with that. But when you have a guy in the 5th round who you have a lot less weight on him developing, it's better for just not losing out on value, which I'm a big fan of getting good value in players. And it gives the Eagles a really good defensive line rotation because they have Fletcher Cox, Cedric Thornton, Vinnie Curry, and now Taylor Hart. And that's a very good group of 4 guys that they can come in, rush the passer, and stop the run. So, I didn't like the Eagles' first pick, but I see him as a contributor, and then I like the rest of the Eagles' draft outside of Watkins.
I kind of like the Benny Logan, Bo Allen rotation at nose tackle.
Yeah,
Bo Allen's just a big man. And Benny Logan's a bit, he's relatively smaller. He's 315 pounds, but he's relatively smaller. But
315 pounds is fine.
Yeah, but as a 2-down space eater, I think Bo Allen can see a lot of I think he's going to make the team because he's definitely the kind of player we need.
Just randomly.
Logan off the field is the guy you want.
That our entire draft class off of the field are guys who, we just got a bunch of really high character college graduates, and that's exactly what Chip Kelly wants in the locker room.
I think a team that had a similar draft to that too was Kansas City, because I know that some people didn't like D Ford. I actually thought their value was okay. I wouldn't have picked him for Kansas City, but I thought the value was fine there. But Phillip Gaines could be the best cornerback in this class. I'm a huge fan of his. I thought D'Anthony Thomas could be a really nice compliment to Nile Davis and Jamal Charles. And Aaron Murray in round 5, he might start in a year. Like,
I'm not high on Aaron Murray.
I know some aren't super high on him, but he might be better than Alex Smith.
I like Aaron Murray.
As someone who watched every game of Aaron Murray's career, his potential is that of Tony Romo. And that's not a bad thing. I don't mean that as a bad thing at all. Like, Tony Romo's a top 10 quarterback. The problem with Aaron Murray is he does have those bad days that Tony Romo has, and unfortunately they are against really good teams.
Yeah, but you're not giving Tony Romo to Jason Garrett, who doesn't know how to manage a quarterback. You're giving Tony Romo to Andy Reid to run an offense. I mean,
he needs to understand that he's got to run the ball more.
No,
other than that, yeah, I agree.
I like Aaron Murray, and I think Aaron Murray ended up in a very good situation with a very quarterback-friendly coach. And I think that if he does start, I think he has the potential to be very, very above average.
Yeah, no, I think Aaron Murray's definitely in the right spot. I just don't see him as a potential starter. I see him as probably perpetually one of the league's top backups, Sean Hill kind of guy.
He might be better than Alex Smith, though. He might be a better, mediocre Aaron Murray might be better than Alex Smith. He might give you the same as Alex Smith. He might give you a little bit better. There's no way I'd pay Alex Smith.
He's got a better arm.
Team.
Yeah, I mean,
he could do the same thing.
Than Alex Smith, but
no, he's got a better arm. Like,
yeah, sure.
Accuracy-wise, he's got a Chad Pennington type arm where it may not be the strongest, but he can make the throws. He's very accurate. You know, he may not have the size of Pennington, but he's got the same kind of arm that Pennington had.
I think the
thing is to get stronger,
to be good enough to give the Chiefs leverage down the line against Alex Smith.
Yeah, pretty much.
Actually, if that's Eddie, I love the pick in that context.
Now, I think Scott mentioned earlier. I don't know how much longer we want to go on for. It's been an hour and a half, but we can go on for however long as we want. The Colts draft.
Oh no.
Dumpster fire.
There's one player in this class I like. Jack Mewhort. I'm not a fan.
Yeah.
I like Moncrief.
Their best draft pick was made after the draft when they signed Zach Kerr.
That's true.
That was a good. Yeah, it might have been their second best.
That was their best draft pick.
But guys, remember, they
didn't even draft. And Jonathan Harrison.
Don't forget they got Trent Richardson. That's important.
They did draft Trent Richardson in this draft.
Yeah,
they don't have an offensive line to block for him. Like, I like Mewhort as a guard, which they kind of want to put him there.
Now. He's just bad.
Their offensive line is garbage. And Richardson, you think that everybody thinks Richardson's bad. Yeah, he looks bad, but he's getting hit behind the line almost every play. Like, he's not as bad as people think he is. You give him a line to give him 1 yard.
One of the reasons he keeps getting hit behind the line is because he's not decisive. He takes way too long to pick a hole and burst.
Oh, I agree. Someone needs to smack him across the face when they're watching film and be like, "Dude, just pick a hole." And yes, that is what she said, Ethan.
I'm just not a fan.
But seriously, just pick a hole and go through it and just go and just
go.
Okay.
But see, the thing, midway through his first season with the Browns, or his season with the Browns, I should say, he did start picking a hole, and it was the wrong hole, consistently. I don't know. I don't see him as necessarily all that redeemable if you put a great offensive line in front of him. Great, now he's decisive, and it's into an offensive lineman's ass. That's fantastic.
The wrong hole.
Oh God! Guys.
And then into an offensive lineman's ass.
Yeah. Okay. Oh, Jesus.
I'm done.
I would like to say, getting back to football.
Am I the oldest one here? Scott's older than me, right?
I turned 26 in September.
Okay, then Scott and I are the same age. Well, except I'm clearly older than him now. God.
Yeah, by a couple months, I'm guessing.
No. I mean, we're literally like the same age. I turned 26 in September, but I'm like clearly older than you too.
Maybe emotionally.
Oh, okay, I can't believe I'm the
Maybe you're just like dick and fart jokes, all right?
I knew you were going to
Okay,
make
Alright,
this video.
so-
Oh, God.
Here's a random question. So we've covered a lot of teams tonight. Is there one team out there that you think is going to surprise a lot of people next year? Just like looking at sort of like how the rosters are fleshed out.
I mean,
Who's one team that you think could really surprise a lot of people?
In a good way or a bad way?
You can do either.
Sorry to say this, Ethan. New England. I'm going to surprise in a bad way.
We've heard it the last
Yeah.
3 years, so we'll see about that.
Yeah,
Like every year,
I'm not
Scott
going to like
said that
rehash.
the Bills were going to beat the Patriots 2 years ago, and that didn't happen.
that's with Ryan Fitzpatrick.
I never
but
said
see,
the
the
Bills were
thing
going to
is-
sweep the Patriots. I said they were going to beat the
He
Patriots.
said they're going to finish above in the division, and they ended up in last.
Well, so
It
I think
happens.
the reason it is slightly different now is because this is the first time the Patriots have. This is the first time the Patriots have had this margin of victory on average throughout the course of their games, this consistently bad. Like if you
That's
take a
true.
look at, if you look at sort of, minute by minute or second by second, what the point differential is in their games, it's the worst it's ever been. And I mean, Tom Brady's going to be 37 to start the season, right? And you're going to give him, he's going to get a lot of weapons back. His offensive line's going to be better, and that's great. But there's like a lot of signs of his decline that are there, and I don't want to rehash it because everybody's already seen this debate. It took
Oh,
over
God.
Twitter for 2 days. I don't want to talk about it.
So annoying.
But the point is, there's, I'm glad that they've got all these pieces on defense and they're great and all that. But I just don't think that, offensively they're going to be cohesive enough to consistently put games away. And if you can't put games away, you're just going to lose some surprising games. It might be to the Bills. Who knows? I think that the Patriots might end up with like 9 wins for the first time in like 12 or 13 years.
Yeah, I think I understand where you're coming from, but I also think that last year's team was worse than this year's team is going to be. I think that they get a lot of weapons back, as you said. I think their defense could be a lot better this year than it was last year. And I do think that the team is going to be better. I think Brady has more continuity on offense. I mean, they were so beaten up last year. That's like their top 5 defensive tackles or something like that. They were starting Chris Jones and Joe Villano. So
Hey, don't you knock Chris Jones. I like Chris Jones.
I like Chris Jones, but he should not be playing every snap.
No, you should not.
But no, I'm more optimistic this year than I was last year. I think that they're going to be fine, but we'll see. It's valid. The team I think is going to surprise in a positive way.
It's still above 500 for them. Let's put that in context.
Yeah, and I think that we'll see what happens. But the team that is going to surprise for me in a good way, no one's talking about Washington. I think Robert Griffin could have a massive year. I've seen this story play out time and time again, where a quarterback comes off a knee surgery, has one mediocre year, and then blows the world away the year after that. Happened with Brady. Happened with Manning's neck. I think it happens with RG3. I think it comes back better than ever. I think that getting Deshaun Jackson there, that offense could do some crazy things. I love Jay Gruden there as well. And Andre Roberts. I think New York takes a step back. New York Giants roster is not that impressive this year to me. I think there's a chance that I think Philly's the best team in that division. I think there's a chance Dallas takes a step back too. I think Washington makes a really strong play for a wild card berth this year. I don't think they're better than Philly, but I think that they're going to surprise a lot of people.
The thing with Washington is their defense is still garbage, and with their offense, their weapons, you need to be creative with the weapons in order to get them out in space. And with Deshaun Jackson, Pierre Garçon, and I question how creative Jay Gruden is. I don't know if he
that's fair.
held back the Bengals' offense or if he was just kind of playing with Andy Dalton. That's kind of hard to
Yeah, I think that's fair. I mean, the way that I see it, though, they sort of create space themselves by being the kind of athletes that they are. Because you have to respect Deshaun Jackson.
Deshaun Jackson has always had a problem dealing with physicality at the line, though. And with what you saw in Philadelphia a lot was Chip Kelly, doing stacked formations, motioning pre-snap, just in order to get him a free release and get him out in space, and so he wouldn't have to deal with that physicality. And I feel like that there's a similar thing with Pierre Garçon where he's going to have issues fighting at the line. So I don't doubt that they have very explosive playmakers, but it's just the use of those. I think that they're definitely going to improve from last year because RG3 is going to be healthy, and RG3 is a very good quarterback. But I don't know how much. I think they're going to be more of like a 7, maybe 8 win team rather than like a 9 or 10 win.
Well, I actually would kind of disagree on Garçon. As someone who sort of rode the Garçon train a little bit to fantasy football victory last year, he's a strong son of a bitch. That guy is tough. He has really good hands, not great hands, but good enough. He's really hard to tackle, makes some really crazy catches, and he's tough on the line of scrimmage. He's sort of like, to me, a Roddy White light, the way he plays. Roddy White in his prime. I really like him. I think he's a top 20 receiver in football.
I'm not going to say he's a top 20 receiver in football, but I'll echo the statements about how strong he is because, for some of the stuff I'm putting together about the Vikings, I rewatched that Washington Vikings game, and Garçon ran over linebackers. He destroyed some of these strong safeties.
Roddy White was never that strong. I could see Steve Smith as a comparison. Because Steve Smith was surprisingly strong for his size. Roddy White just doesn't make sense as a Garçon comparison.
He had that wrestler strength. He always had leverage at the line of scrimmage.
He's always got leverage at the line of scrimmage. He's always got strong hands. But as far as running people over, Roddy White never did that.
Well, I love
Roddy White.
Does. Garçon doesn't run people over. He's hard to tackle.
He ran over Chad Greenway. That was fun.
Yeah, but Greenway sucks.
Okay, who does? I could run over Chad Greenway. Shit. And I'm built like Maurice Jones-Drew. 5'6", 200, baby.
All right, Scott, who's going to surprise in a positive or negative way? Anyway, Ben has something to say, and then Scott can go.
I was gonna talk about my team, but Scott, go.
All right, so I'm going to do the negative way real quick. I do agree with the Giants. I'm just on their roster. I think they could easily go 6-10, 5-11 next year, easily. There's just not enough overall talent on the roster to get really excited.
What do you think about Ben McAdoo?
Huh?
Their new offensive coordinator.
Whatever.
Whatever. Okay.
I mean, he's a quarterback coach for the Green Bay Packers. He's going to be great. We hear it we hear it every year. The people that make the Packers offense run is Aaron Rodgers. It's like picking Peyton Manning's offensive coordinator and being like, he's going to make our team great. Yeah.
To the playoffs.
You see that Adam Gase actually got a couple of interviews too, right?
Yeah, Adam Gase got a couple interviews.
Love Adam Gase.
Let me. Can I coach Peyton Manning? I don't even have to do anything. He's Peyton Manning. He's going to do his own thing. I'll get interviews for head coaching jobs and everything. But no, whatever. Yeah, former Green Bay Packers head coach or Green Bay Packers quarterback coach. Let him have a shot at offensive coordinator role. Whatever.
Hey, yeah, okay.
I mean, whatever. I can't be excited about an offense I've never seen.
Yeah.
I
can get behind being down on the New York Giants too. When I think it was Ethan who mentioned it, yeah, I totally agree.
And then the positive surprise, I think, is going to be Jacksonville. I think a lot of people are expecting an improvement of 7-9, 8-8, but looking at their schedule, I could see them win 10, 11 games, especially in the AFC South.
Whoa, their quarterback likely is going to be Chad Henne.
And in 2008, Atlanta's quarterback was likely going to be Chris Redmond.
That's one example. Come on, man.
In 2009, every team who takes a quarterback in the top 5 says, oh, we're going to sit him. Not a single team is actually going to sit their first-round quarterback.
Re-sign.
Okay, but the reason that you would sit Blake Bortles is the reason that if you started him, you shouldn't expect 10 wins. Like he's just not ready.
They have a higher chance of winning this year with Henny than Bortles.
Yeah, and in fact, I would even be behind them starting Bortles just so that he can learn and get the experience or whatever it is.
They're not going to win
But
with
I agree that they win more with Henny right now, even if in the long term.
I think you run a heavy run-based offense, and it really doesn't matter.
Yeah, but their line is horrible. I mean, their interior.
That doesn't mean you don't pass, right? I mean, like, think about the
you don't pass, but you run it based on play action, which Bortles is good at.
I mean,
you tailor it to what he's good at.
Right, but think about the successful run-based offenses in the league right now. Seattle, San Francisco, maybe we're projecting Washington to do it, whatever. The point is they all have good quarterbacks that can run as successfully off of play action. Like maybe you could throw in Kansas City, but I think, in this discussion we did underrate Alex Smith a little bit. He's been successful off of play action too. I don't think Blake Bortles is at that level yet. I don't think he's a good – and all of those successful run-based offenses still have – good quarterbacks. If you can run a run-based offense with a bad quarterback, then the Vikings would be in the playoffs every single year, and they're not. And I think that
a year ago.
Well, yeah, with a historic once-in-a-lifetime season, great. If you can get that out of Storm Johnson and Toby Gerhart, full power to you. That's fantastic.
I think Toby Gerhart is better than people think.
I totally agree. Trust me. But he's not a. Like, he's not a 2,000.
I'm not saying he's Adrian Peterson here, but I'm saying he's
Toby Gerhart. And correct me if I'm wrong, Arif. He's a running back who does really well with what the offensive line gives him. Am I
right? Yes and no. So the more weight that Minnesota asked him to put on, sort of the less successful he was at creating wiggle for himself. But if you look at his rookie season and his Stanford stuff, he had a lot of wiggle when he had a little bit less weight, and he's got fantastic vision. So he will get exactly what the offensive line and the blockers will get you, but that's better than what most running backs can get you on a consistent basis because their vision isn't necessarily as good as his. I'm not saying that Toby Gerhart's a big play threat, but I do think he's definitely a starting quality running back in the league.
Right, and I like Gerhart, but the thing with him and Jacksonville in terms of having a playoff-worthy running team is their line is bad. I mean, Jokel's good. Pastor was a lot better than people were expecting him to be, but they have no center. They're starting a rookie guard who's kind of a project in Linder, and Zane Beatles is incredibly overrated. And
I honestly like Brewster quite a bit, honestly. I'm not a huge fan of Luke Bowanko, but if they start Mike Brewster, I think they'll be pretty solid. You don't have to be drafted to be a good center in the NFL.
No, I'm
have to be drafted high to be a good center in the NFL.
That offensive line plus Toby Gerhart is not a playoff running back team, like a team based off of the run that can make the playoffs. I mean, you need an extremely good running game, and I don't think that's an extremely good running game. I think that's a better than average running game. And then you don't have a quarterback, I think, right now that has the ability to get you things like 10 wins or whatever. Which is not to say that
I think that the team that people are sleeping on in that division is the Titans.
Yes.
If Jake Locker is healthy, God damn it, they will kick ass.
Yeah, no, well, the thing with the Titans is if Jake Locker's healthy, which is a big if,
and if I was dating Scarlett Johansson, I'd treat her like a princess, okay?
It immediately improves
Come on, man. It's reasonable to assume that Jake Locker can be healthy. I think that there's a big difference.
According to what in the past?
But,
okay, we're using historical data here.
I'm not saying I bet on it. I'm saying
was on the Niners. Instead of calling Kaepernick, I think that Jake Locker would be behind the line that would keep him healthy and might have been the quarterback to sign a $100 million deal today.
Oh, He's
that good
for a second
to me.
But I think that they don't, and they're not going to need to have Jake Locker do a lot of things either because their offensive line now is made up of Taylor Lewan, who's a monster. You don't have to like him very much, but he's just a humongous athlete. Chance Warmack, who's a monster.
Warmack.
Andy Levitra, who's a monster. And probably Michael Roos.
Michael Roos, yeah.
Very good. Their offensive line is just nasty now, and they got one of the best vision running backs in the draft in Bishop Sankey, who, if they start, God please start him over Sean Green, they're going to have a phenomenal running game this year. And they have Kendall Wright, who's very good, Justin Hunter, who can be very good, Delaney Walker, who's solid, and if Jake Locker's healthy, they have a very good quarterback. And then you shift to the other side of the ball, and the other side of the ball is just filled with speed. I mean, their entire defense is just speed and athletic ability, and
a lot of misfits for that
yardage defense. But Ray Horton's going to find a way to get turnovers for that team. And if you have a good running game and you have a defense that's able to get turnovers, I mean, that's a weak division too. I mean, the Texans had a phenomenal draft, but they have no quarterback. The Jacksonville Jaguars are going to be good, but in 2 years kind of team. And the Indianapolis Colts are basically Andrew Luck and a bunch of guys. I'm like, there is a good chance that if the Titans manage their season right and Jake Locker stays healthy, which once again is a big if, they could make the playoffs, and they have the talent to do so all over their team.
Yeah. Okay. That
I
makes
like
sense.
Titans. Is that your team, Ben? Your surprise team? Or
That's
do you
my
have one?
surprise team.
I just feel bad that I stole it. Have another one. Go.
Tampa Bay. I
Tampa
think that they've got a good.
Like, the thing with Tampa Bay is, I think they could be very good, but their quarterback play is still going to be awful.
Yep.
But because
If you get to trust Nick Foles, they get to trust Josh McCown.
What?
What?
Nick
what
Foles
was-
is so much better than McCown, though. Which isn't saying much about McCown. I'm just. But Nick Foles is so much better than McCown.
I think
Just up
anyone
here better.
throwing to Vincent Jackson and Mike Evans, he literally can do the same thing he did in Chicago. He can just throw
Yeah.
it 40 yards down the field, say jump, and they'll get it.
With Jeff Tedford designing the offense now, I think that's something, right?
No,
And then
I think that offense is going to be a lot better than it should be with that quarterback because they have they have 3 humongous receivers because they have
And
Austin.
I mean, if Jeff Tedford can make Joey Harrington look like a top 3 pick.
And then the forgotten man there is Doug Martin. He's
Yeah.
still there.
And
Right?
the-
And they've got muscle hamster.
last year, but I mean, if he's
and they just signed Ultron Werner, right? And they've got they've got Levante David and they've got Gerald McCoy. They've got Lovie Smith designing the defense. I mean, technically Leslie Frazier probably is, but they've got Lovie Smith designing the defense. I think they're going to be a surprise. Yeah, I don't think they're going to win the division.
and I think an underrated draft pick that they had was Robert Huron because
Oh yeah.
their receiving core pre-Robert Huron was just a bunch of monsters, but now they have a bunch of monsters and
And
a
a quick
guy
guy.
to open up the field for them.
Yeah.
I mean,
I
that's
think an underrated, undrafted free agent they had was Brett Smith.
Lovie
That
Smith
guy-
and Leslie Frazier have the same exact defense.
future Hall of Famer, Brett Smith.
Hall of Famer Brett Smith.
Oh,
And
man.
I'll stick by that until his induction.
Hey,
I like Brett Smith. I never claimed he was a future Hall of Famer, but I thought he could have at least been a
first
starter.
overall pick on the board.
I thought he should have been drafted, but
Yeah,
that
like,
to him is kind
Yeah.
of funny and sad.
I think Keith
Look,
Wenning.
if A.J. McCarron should be drafted, I thought Brett Smith should have been drafted.
Yeah, no, yeah, sure. Makes sense.
if Tom Savage can be drafted, Brett Smith deserves to be drafted.
Yeah, I mean, at least with Brett Smith, you're getting a modicum of upside. I mean, Tom Savage and A.J. McCarron just offer absolutely nothing in terms of upside.
Wait, did Brett Smith get picked up by somebody after the Bucks cut him?
I
Do
don't.
we know that?
Probably Canada.
Probably Canada picked him up.
He might be the best quarterback in CFL history.
He might have to do the Warren Moon thing.
It's a bigger field, so he can stand him.
He might have to do the Warren Moon thing. What's
might.
wrong with that?
Yeah.
Ball out in the CFL for like 6 years, and then people go, maybe this guy's pretty good.
Wikipedia lists him as a free agent, so it looks like he's not with an NFL team. So yeah, he's gonna do the Warren Moon thing. He's gonna Doug Flutie a little bit. He's gonna
But he's
reappear
bigger
and
than
take the league
both.
by storm.
I would like to quickly, since we're talking about Josh McCown, I'd like to quickly say that the Bears draft was very good because they got Kyle Fuller, and then they stole Will Sutton in the 3rd round. And I think Will Sutton is going to be a monster because Will Sutton is better than Aaron Donald, and I'll stick by that until his Hall of Fame induction.
I think Ego Ferguson is going to be more valuable than Will Sutton, and I think Ego Ferguson starts next to Stephen Pea this year.
No, I think it's going to be Ego Ferguson, and then...
Because Ego Ferguson is a Corey Peters clone who will actually get used because he went to a bigger school.
Yeah, but I feel like Ego is going to be the 1, and then Will is going to be the 3.
Hopefully Will's going to be the 3. They're going to make him lose weight again. I mean,
yeah, well, I think they're probably going to get him down to 180. I mean, not 1. Oh, my God. 285.
They're going to get him down to Robert Heron size and
receiver.
I don't think you can get him down that far. But like 275 to 280, Will Sutton is a legitimate 3-tech.
Yeah, no. If they make him lose weight, I like him at 3-tech.
The reason why I like Ego Ferguson is he could start at 3-tech, and then on pass downs you put him to the 1. You flip him around. You rotate him. 60%.
I guess I just don't see that much about Ego Ferguson.
Yeah, he was just kind of...
He ate double teams every play. That's why I love him.
Low upside kind of guy. I mean, which is fine, but not in the 2nd round.
Yeah, I don't know. I didn't see a 2nd round out of him. I saw him as sort of a mid-round kind of guy. But I mean, like, I agree that Chicago's draft overall was very good. I thought Kyle Fuller was definitely one of the better cornerbacks in the draft. In fact, I had him as my number 1 cornerback. And I think that going to Chicago is a very good fit for him. I like Will Sutton. I don't know that much if I like Kadeem Carey, but every pick after that I really liked.
Like a poor
Chicago, do you start Kyle Fuller and Brock Vereen at safety over Chris Conti and Ryan Mundy?
I think you play Kyle Fuller at cornerback.
I think you kind of have to. And then when Peanut Tillman leaves, you play Kyle Fuller at cornerback.
I think I think that Vereen was a good pick. Pat O'Donnell, punter. I guess that Arif likes the punter. I like Charles Leno at offensive tackle.
Yeah. In the 6th round, drafting a punter who can run a 4.4 is a really good fit.
Run a 4.4.
Especially when he can kick the shit out of the ball on kickoffs.
Also, is there a better spot for David Fales than with Mark Trestman? I mean, I think that's a great fit for him.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I just want to see him start sooner than later because I'm selfish. But
I would not like that as a Vikings fan.
Yeah. I'm not a Fales fan, so I thought Smith could have been picked over Fales too.
Yeah, well, everyone in the NFL hates Brett Smith apparently.
Everybody.
Yeah. Everyone hates him. Deal with it.
One team's draft, I don't think I've heard a single person talk about it, good or bad. I like San Diego's draft a lot.
Oh yeah,
everybody forgets about them.
Everyone forgets about them, but they got Verrett, Atauchu, Chris Rott, and Ryan Carruthers, and Tevin Reese in round 7.
Well, don't sleep on Marion Grice. He's definitely one of my favorite running backs.
Yeah,
I thought that was. I mean, that's. You're right.
They got Jerry Atauchu.
Yeah, you're right. That's a really good draft.
I was hoping that if Atauchu didn't go to Atlanta at some point, that he would go all the way across the country to a team that I never had to see. Because when you see a guy go in and just destroy UGA's offensive line for 4 sacks, 2 from each side, you're kind of like, I really don't want to see this guy unless he's playing for the Falcons, but once every 4 years. Like, had he gone to the Patriots, I would have been like, all right, that's cool. Or like I wanted him to go to the AFC or Atlanta.
I would much rather Atauchu at 27 than Marcus Smith.
Would have been a better pick.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
And the other thing I really liked about San Diego is that players complemented their team really well because they needed a cornerback like DeVrett. They needed a nose tackle to free up Kendall Reyes, who was horrible at the nose last year. Frees up Reyes and Legit to have Carruthers in between. I mean, it's
Carruthers is a monster too. I love Carruthers.
Well, and then you got Kwame Gathers and Sean Lismore rotating in, which helps out.
Yeah. Anyway, it's been 2 hours. I think it's about time to call it a night. I think that we should try to do this on Wednesdays. I would be fine with that. Arif, you are welcome anytime as a Goyim guest.
I don't get off until 9 on Wednesdays, so if we could do it at like 10, that'd be great.
I mean, maybe. The only thing is just I have work early every day.
Or if
But-
you're cool with me, like coming in late.
But I think that I liked what Zach had the idea of doing with the prospect live breakdowns. I think that could be a lot of fun. So maybe if we do a few of those
Work out really well.
every day, or we do like 9:30 to like 11 or something like that, that could be cool. But anyway,
That would
we'll
work.
talk about this later. It was fun. Arif, thanks for coming.
Thanks for having me.
It
lot of fun.
is always a pleasure, and hopefully we do this more consistently from here on out. So thanks for watching. Bye.